Hello, everyone. It is Cheryl Millett here live at 5. I guess in some ways it'll be for the people that come that watch it later. But the idea is, again, to come on when certain things are coming up, to talk about them, to actually present other ways of looking at things, to talk about whatever there is that comes up with comments here. So live at 5 is it's all things healthy, but what does that mean exactly? It really is narrowing in on the many things of health. If you're happy, that's a healthy thing. If you're balanced, well, in your lifestyle and how you do things will be helpful mentally, healthy mental health, physical health. So health is kind of an all-encompassing area, and even more at this time, but not more at this time. It's almost like this event has shined a huge light on many things. Some maybe less, some maybe more, some for the first time. But it doesn't really matter how, where it is and how it is for anybody. Definitely people have come on board for, I don't even on board, um, I guess found education or found information enough, very interesting enough that they were able to spend a bit of time better understanding things, which is what I kind of want to bring up here is question. I think question and questions should be coming up. Now, I think it was a good thing that I actually went into the car. It was left on 680 News here in Toronto, and I was able to hear, I think it was closer to 1 o'clock, so I was able to hear the Premier of Ontario speaking, and I could all but just try to really think about his words and how he was presenting them to all the people that are listening to him speak about how things are and that we might not get back to normal until we get the vaccine and those kind of things. It's kind of interesting that, and I'm trying to think of an analogy here because something just popped up, that if let's just say you had a bummed knee, your knee's not working properly. Are you going to disown your knee? If uh, something, I don't know, happening with your finger or any parts of your body, are you going to disown them? You're not going to disown them. And in some cases, what I want to kind of get across here is viruses, bacterias, germs. Now, fortunately, we understand about good bacteria, gut bacteria, and more bacteria than cells in our body. And if bringing attention to viruses, germs, and bacteria at this time to try to understand that the good bacteria, good viruses, or viruses have their purpose, germs, and it comes down to what is required. And I've mentioned this before. If our body is breaking down, if plants are breaking down, decomposing, we have these things all around us to make us stronger. I think I've mentioned about the mosquito from a native mentioning it's nature's inoculator. So how beautiful is that? The people who live in the areas where there's malaria have been inoculated by the mosquitoes as they pick up the various things that are in the area, and they actually so they're immune. I don't know, some people may not even know that people can be immune to malaria. And that's the idea, that the things that are around us in nature are there, they have a reason. Now, I'm going to suggest a couple of things here and then talk about one other thing, and we'll kind of wrap up that. The idea is within our bodies, we have nature at work. Now, if we don't eat properly, if we don't sleep properly, if we don't take care of ourselves, if we feed ourselves processed food, I'll say sterilized food because I want to talk about sterilizing in a minute. But the idea is our body is prime real estate for certain things to happen. But it's not just that. The way the body can also work is we have other elements coming in that interfere with the removal of the amount of toxins in our body that either come into our body or created naturally by our own body. And if the toxins don't get out, we can absolutely have the bacteria, the germs. I mean, germs. What are germs? I mean, you get sepsis, you have bacteria in there, but there's an open wound. So there's got to be a certain amount of conditions that have to line up in order for, I'm just going to call them symptoms, conditions, diseases. There has to be, are things that line up before those things happen. You've heard it. If you are diagnosed with cancer, you've had cancer for years. Unless they're giving you radiation from multiple doses year after year, x-rays on the breast tissue, where the doctor says, they were taught in medical school, and these are decades ago, and I listened to him speak about it, never put pressure on the breast tissue. That's a trauma, people. When you have pain like people would have in any nature, surgery, okay, so the breast, ultrasounds, I'm trying to think of what it's called, but that is, so when there's pain and discomfort like that, that's a trauma on the body. That is traumatic for the body. And it would cause the body to go into all kinds of other things, pain, different chemistry in the body, tightness in the body. And these things would, again, prime the body to be not feeling well, to maybe it to progress, those kind of things. But if the body is in a part where things could happen anyway, then things may trigger things in the body. So let's say your lifestyle is X, your diet is X, not optimum, and certain things are kind of there, and then a trauma comes in, and that's just, what is it, the straw that breaks the camel's back, stuff like that. And it would absolutely kind of bring into effect how things would then come up to be, surface symptoms and conditions and diseases, things like those all come up. So I just wanted to kind of get right into, if we can understand as much the viruses, the bacteria, the germs, that they are natural on our planet. We will never get rid of them. And if we try too hard to get rid of them, we're going to upset the nature of things. We're just going to do that. So it's so important not to be afraid of virus, bacteria, and germs, but to contemplate, why are they causing us grief? Why are they interrupting our life, our health? That's why, people, when this coronavirus as such is around, and why they'll say it affects the elderly. More importantly, it affects those people who have an imbalanced system. They call it an immune system, but there's still more to that, right? There's still more that's kind of may be out of whack here. But when people are kind of connecting with our loved ones, that's an element of good health, this whole community. That's why I never forget social distancing. Forget staying in the house. Physical distancing, yes. Getting out and getting the sunshine, yes. But the idea is to step into what is going to be natural as well, like the mosquito. Can you imagine you eradicated mosquitoes in some of these warm areas, and these very people with the mutations of whatever are not becoming immune to the very things that are all around them. This is the bubble, people, that we had watched a movie on, right? A Boy in the Bubble. That's what the movie was called. So the idea here is, and somebody mentioned it, Dale, who I know, and he mentioned it. It was like, yes, we, our children, us, live in a more sterilized world. We clean everything to death. Kids are wearing shoes, like heaven forbid they step on a rock and it's a bit painful, or they cut their foot. When I grew up, we were out bare feet all the time, and you just knew different terrains, you paid attention. So we definitely have all the sterile food, from refined vegetable to all the cooking, the process, the freezing, all of that. It's not fresh, unprocessed whole foods. It is all of that. So yes, so we sterilize our foods. We sterilize our homes, where we have super duper multi-pane windows where we're not letting the fresh air in. We have all the cleaning products that exist with all the toxins in them. They're just clean, 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 clean. I mean, there's an idea that we have to provide safety for food safety, but ultimately we need to look at, I actually have some numbers here. I'm going to go through. Hi, Lottie. Hello, Angela. Hello, Carla. Um, there's some numbers I'm going to go through here, but and some people will argue this isn't the time, and I will say it's absolutely the time, because as things kind of get going and life gets going, it will, and more so if we are aware and if we speak up and we, we just say what makes more sense, because I think picking and choosing of science here is what happened. They're not talking about the full science picture here. When I say they, governments, governors, like it's just not the complete picture. Here's some things. When we talk about what we should really be talking about is why we do have all the cancer. Why do we have all of the diabetes? Why do we have all the obesity? Why do we have all the alcoholics? Perhaps why we had to keep the LCBO stores. I mean, even just the mere fact that they did that helps us to communicate and talk about this more in the open. But I brought up a few different sites here. I wanted to go back through the numbers a little bit. Now, in the Cancer Society, they are estimating 1 out of 2 people will have cancer. Now, if we look at the stats of 2,000 people dying from COVID, 2,000 people in Ontario, and I'm going to go through because I actually downloaded the spreadsheets in a second here. It was interesting how they stopped bringing the negative numbers. So let me do that first. Here's the COVID testing here. I'm just going to bring this up. I'm sure you can see me. I can see you. So this was very interesting. So quite quite an elaborate spreadsheet here, but I love spreadsheets. But for some reason, confirmed negative fell off. They only recorded numbers since early February to March 29th. I don't know why they stopped. They stopped presumptuous negatives, presumptuous positives. So they went into confirmed positive, resolves death, and I did this change thing. So when I crunched these numbers, and I put in my numbers here, and listen, I have to tell you, right off of the get-go, if we are measuring anything and we're doing more tests, the number's always going to get higher. But what's most important is the deaths. I don't hear them, just in a short while on the news. I don't hear deaths anymore. Well, I didn't hear it in the time that I heard it. It was all about the testing and all about the cases. We found whatever number of cases more. What does that matter at the end of the day? Natural immunity here, the 3 key research studies that they did where they studied and tested for antibodies, way more percentage of people have it. We already know that there's people walking around that have antibodies, and maybe it's not coronavirus this year because they never tested for this last year or the year before. This is a coronavirus test. Remember, models aren't perfect and tests are not perfect by far. So we always have to keep open to these numbers, and should have been at the models right at the beginning. Looked at this. So I was looking at the change. And the change from one day to the next regarding deaths, and the change from one day to the next on total cases. Because I know total cases, they're just going to go up. Of course, they're going to go up. They're going to go up. You're always going to see a larger number. But what's most important is well, where's kind of the peak? So I'm going to tell you what kind of came up here in the numbers. So April the 24th, that was the peak in total cases. 640, never been any higher, and currently we have 441, and we're testing more, probably. Testing, which is crazy. It should be irrelevant. It really should be more about what the antibodies that people have, what's the number of the percentage of population has had it already, and also the deaths. That's probably a better number. So on May the 4th, that's when the peak for the deaths was at 84. And now we're at 28, 31, and there was 43, there was a 15. So they've come significantly, continue coming down. This is May 22nd. To me, that means everything. More than 50% of the deaths, because fortunately they were able to, you probably got the questions of, well, how much is that in the elderly center, considering these care centers are the ones that have a lot of them. Well, it's more than 50% of those deaths are in the elderly care centers, and probably like Italy, where they came out and said 12% of the total deaths. I don't even know of who or changed that. That would be, I'd have a heyday with asking questions. But did they actually change the total deaths from Italy when they announced, not through mainstream media, but announced that it was only 12% of the total deaths from COVID, right? Because you've been hearing this. You can die from COVID or you can die with COVID. You're around a lot of people in those hospitals. You're bound to get the COVID, but we're there because pneumonia is one of the top 10 diseases, right? So lots of things kind of going on here. We definitely need to focus on the right numbers. I think the idea that they're pressing cases going up is such a poor way of instilling fear, and we got to keep doing what we're well, I'm not doing it anymore, but I still absolutely see the people around me doing it, and I completely respect where their head is at, absolutely. So there's no, I'm not going to run up to them and do any crazy things like that. Absolutely not. So let's look at some other numbers here. Cancer Society. You wonder why we have a pandemic here when they talk about the amount of cancer, the amount of, let's see if it's going to come up there. So in some ways, I think the enemy is not the virus. It's not the virus. It's the fear mongering that kind of goes in. I want to just kind of go through the total numbers. I get it, 1 out of 4, we could do the math. 1 out of 2, we could do the math. But this is the kind of nonsense stuff, in my opinion. I mean, if I was the health minister in Canada, and the corporations like these people here, you know, cancer.ca, and I actually had to talk to them, and they're putting estimated numbers like this that are not even proven to be correct year after year, like, okay, faulty models. I would say, well, they can't do that. Sorry, you can't give estimates anymore because they're incorrect. If you're going to give an estimate, it better be half of what you normally do, or whatever it is, leave it out. But here's the scenario. We have on average 228 Canadians that die from cancer every day. 228. We have 5,000 deaths from COVID. 228 deaths of Canadians will die from cancer every day. So then there's the diagnosis that they're going to die from cancer. That's 617, almost triple that. And this is estimated in 2020, people. The estimation is 50%, 50%. This is what they've been playing with for years. 50%. Proportion of deaths due to cancer and other causes in Canada, 2016. Cancer, 30%. It's higher than even heart disease at 20. And the US has heart disease number one. Number one. So very little proportion of the pies is liver disease, suicides, pneumonia, Alzheimer's, diabetes, respiratory diseases. So if you add respiratory diseases and influenza and pneumonia, you get closer to, of the pie, 7%. Accidents, close to 5% accidents. So the idea is we have these numbers that are put out there on all of these sites for everybody to see. And they're not doing anything about it. Why aren't they doing anything about it? So I was looking at the deaths in Canada, the number of deaths in Ontario, the death rate, the WHO, the latest things on the WHO scenario where you get the latest and the greatest. Where is it? It's the dashboard that they have. Where is it? Yeah. So 327 deaths. If you take 200 and you times that by 52, that's in cancer in Canada alone. And here, the WHO is got 327,000 cases. I think we got our eye on the wrong ball, or our darts are being thrown at the wrong target here. And I'm not going to claim to know what's going on. I won't claim exactly to know what's going on. All I know is the authority is going to people's heads, right from the cashier at Loblaws. I've shared that story, to the governors and freedoms. We really, really, really have to keep our mind on freedoms because this is going to be so important. That's why you look at the Canada Food Guide, and they can't tell you right now to eat like the Canada Food Guide. It's only a guide. We don't want it in the sense where the food, the farmers, all of that is taken away from us. We do not want that. But, this stuff is kind of filtering in there in such a way where the farmers markets are, they're not going to happen until the earliest July. And you know what? They knew that 2 months ago in talking to the farmers. So that's kind of crazy in itself. So the idea is we have to focus on being calm, for sure. We have to focus on enough education to understand the scenario so we can speak intelligently about it when we're thinking, okay, when is this, what is that? We've got to speak up or protest, friendly protest, calm protest, whatever it is, or engage with the lawyers, because right now, if you don't already know, there's a number of lawyers, I'll put a link down below. He's well versed in this, and he's doing a lot in California because of the governor there. It's just also is going to his head. But what is happening, and I hear this in Canada as well, yes, in the US, but Canada as well, where there's going to be a number of cases, already has some in the US, maybe here too, but the courts are shut down. I hear. So there's already getting in positions to put forward to really address the issues of the rights of the people. And I can't say this enough. The government works for us people. There is no way they should be able to tell us what we need to do. That is so ass backwards. It's so ass backwards. However we got in this situation, or maybe it's because lobbyists, maybe it's because of corporations, whatever it is, maybe the true politicians are bought, maybe they are threatened, maybe they are programmed, maybe they have death threats, by mafia. I don't know, but anything's possible. If you watch Hollywood, you soon learn that some of the stuff that's coming out is really happening. My crazy things, like just what I was talking about, Sapiens book, Cyborg. It was kind of leading to this well, why wouldn't we go that way? That's the newest and the crazy. But that's the craziness of that. So sterilized world, that comment, it definitely instills the fear in us as going, okay, well, our immune systems are not ready. Our immune system, no, 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 no. It is so easy to get offside with that. Our systems in our body are approached by germs, bacteria, viruses in the air everywhere. Just go into nature, touch the trees, pick vegetables out of the garden, eat the vegetables without cleaning them, touch the dirt, all of these things, play in the oceans, go in the lakes. Like all of these things will instantly um, populate our system. So I today went and got the spring water. Drink the spring water. In the spring water, there's going to be all kinds of minerals and all kinds of things because the flow that it has. There's a good flow, there's a good energy, there's a good pH, there's all of that there. And with my system introducing that, that's great. A little bit ain't going to hurt us. So look forward to those mosquitoes biting you and think about how they're nature's inoculators. Um, so sterilized, yes. Freedoms, absolutely. Back to the numbers as well and question and do your research for sure. But the idea is we shouldn't be fearing of toxins. We should actually support our body to manage them the best they can. That's the position you want to be in, to be able to manage it. You don't want to go hide in a closet from the bully. You want to be able to stand up to the bully. That's how you get through things. We don't want to get to a point where I know children have, where they're fearful of just going poo. Like poo is nasty. It's terrible. It's like, oh, icky. That's crazy. It's nature doing its thing to get rid of the toxicity. So then they don't go to the washroom for a week because they're afraid. The parents make a terrible face when the child's going for a poo or they're changing their diapers. It's nature. So that's all kind of wrapped up in that world of sterilizing and not understanding how the body works. Absolutely. I think what I put down there, and I often kind of forget what I actually put down in the what am I going to talk about sometimes. I should have some keynotes. Those are the two key things anyway that I wanted to bring up. The other thing, in case it pops into my head, I'm going to remember that one link. It's a bit of a lengthy thing, but it does talk about so much. This person is Charles Essenstein. Yeah, Charles Essenstein. Worth the read because it's more about just bringing to our consciousness, our attention, not crazy. So I got the herb book here once again. Just flipped open the page, thought, hey, we're going to have a little bit of fun here. And what came up was sage, Salvia officinalis. And sage is astringent, antiseptic, and anti-inflammatory. But let's just say you have something tickling your, you got laryngitis, tickling your throat. Most people understand that. But tickling the throat, and so then it's all in there, tonsils even, gums even, and mouth and mouth ulcers and stuff like that. So you can make an infusion using sage and then gargle with this and several times a day. Use it kind of as a mouthwash. You might swallow it a little bit, but the idea is to gargle with it several times in the day. You can buy a tincture, but we grow, sage in our gardens, quite hardy plant, and we use it culinary wise. Well, why not learn about what sage can do? So you got a little tickle in your throat, you got mouth ulcers, cankers, whatever you want to call it. Here you go. You can infuse it. That's, warm water. Look up that. Look what best way to infuse. It's just hot water, and you steep it for a little while, and you take out the leaves and you gargle and you drink it. You can cool it down, obviously. You don't want to drink it hot, but That's the kind of idea. So this, you wouldn't want to use this. So there's the caution here, and I'm going to absolutely make sure I get that in, because like I've said about herbs, you start using them medicinally and you can get into a lot of trouble. So in here, I'm just going to remember, it's pregnancy, women who are pregnant and are nursing. It is not good to use this remedy. That's just not what you want to do. But they do say, they do say this. I'll say this because I never went through it, but because many other people go through it, I'm going to mention it. This makes it the first herb to think of for hot flashes or excessive sweating. Now, if you're sweating, that could be a natural thing. It's hot, drink a lot of fluids, but excessive sweating and hot flashes. So you can use it as that. So it's useful for excessive salivation, and it can also help to dry up breast milk. So I'm not sure how many, I didn't know that about sage. So it was interesting I turned it there. So culinary, absolutely. Chicken stuffing for us people that are familiar with that, but not to be used during pregnancy or when breastfeeding. Obviously, if it's going to dry up breast milk, you don't want to use it for breastfeeding. So the idea is, yeah, sage. Who knew? And there might be different sages, but they talk here the common English name sage, garden sage, red sage, origin the northern Mediterranean, and main uses is culinary, but they put in medicinal here, and it's just in relation to the leaves. So there you go. A little bit back onto the herbs, because why not have some natural remedies? I'll give you a remedy that my grandmother taught us. I know I've talked about this before, but we've got new people on here, and this will be fun because it works. But you have to not have the margarine or any of that processed vegetable oil stuff. It's not going to work with the other fats. It works with butter. So if you recall as a child, or maybe your own children, have this constant cough where as soon as they lie down, they're coughing all night. Cough, cough, cough. As soon as you lie down, it seems like you're fine during the day, and then you lie down and it's like cough, cough, cough. Well, what my grandmother showed, Jessie is her name, I'm sure she's the one who shared it, and I never forgot it as a child. I'd get up in the middle of the night and do it for myself. So a heaping teaspoon of butter, a generous, and of course, ain't gonna work so much if the butter's cold. So there's always that idea that you wouldn't want to nuke it or anything, but you definitely want it soft, whatever that means. Have a little bit of butter out, perhaps, or take it out if you think there might be a cough coming. I know, figure that one out. It's a tricky one if you got your butter solid in the fridge, but it's got to be somewhat soft or room temperature. Then you sprinkle a bunch of salt on it, so the salt's sticking to the butter, and then you swallow. You don't need to chew it or swish it around in the mouth, but then you would take it and you would just swallow it, and done. I wouldn't cough all night. Now, how I absolutely know it doesn't work with margarine. I was on a grade 8 camping trip in Algonquin. I got this cough. I had 3 other people in the tent. I got up out of the tent and got one of the teachers. I don't think it was very, very late. Probably had us in bed early, but there were still some of the teachers up. So they only had margarine. That's it. And I said, okay, well, I'll try it. So I did a spoonful of margarine with a bunch of salt on it, and I swallowed it. And it lasted about an hour, and then I did wake up and start coughing, and I would cough in my pillow. That's how I know margarine doesn't work. Maybe it works for coconut oil. I don't know. Is it a combination of the butter? Is it a combination? Because the butter, as fats, things can't survive in fats. As I talked this about lice and stuff like that. You put a bunch of oil on the head, and the live ones would just suffocate. So maybe there's something about that, and obviously the salt. So that's a cool remedy. Hello, Lady Sharon and Nikki. I would say that's that's probably one of a remedy you can spread far and wide. But I don't know how often it happens. My children never had it, so that's a good thing, I guess. But I always remembered it and used it growing up in that way. I can't think of anything else other than really the key things are, yeah, still things. Keep calm. We want to maintain our freedoms more than anything. We want to focus on self and our health. So no matter what health issues or not that we have, it's still going into eating properly and incorporating and continuing with your healthy lifestyle at this time and more than ever, and focusing on you. So a lot of people I'm hearing are doing that. They got the time to do it, and so they are doing it, which is great. So I think that's an important thing, and to support community. Community is going to be huge going forward. I think that is one of the pluses in this, and there's so many pluses. Actually, I was talking to somebody this morning, and he does a lot of qigong and tai chi, and I taught him Waidan, and he's actually making a list. He says, well, it's a short list, but he says it's a quality list as to the nice things that people have done for me and the things that I have done for other people. I'm not saying for you to do a list, but the idea is there is a lot of lovely things happening now, and even if we want to kind of just focus on and ask ourselves, what could we do? What is it that we could do to make people's life easier? And I know with the walk club, because most of them are coming out, but there's more people coming out every Sunday now. I can just see who's signing up now that they're feeling comfortable. I did a weekly Zoom call on Thursdays. So there's only a half a dozen of people that kind of participate, but that's a half a dozen people that get together and are appreciative, and we kind of just chat about anything and everything for the first half hour, and then I ask them, does anybody have any particular thing they want to put on the table, questions or comments, discussions, those kind of things. So it's important, I think, to keep the community in whichever way we've had, and keep it going, and more so for family, for sure. So I've been making it a habit to call a person or two or three over the course of the week that I haven't talked to during this event. I've been busy myself, but I'm just making it a habit. I might have not talked to them for 6 months maybe, and I'm just making a habit of reconnecting and to connecting and to see how things are, get caught up, and those kind of things. So it's all great. And it looks like my dinner's ready. So I'm gonna sign off. If there's any questions or comments or anything, put them here. I'll put that list, actually I'm going to put a couple of links, maybe some of these links to some of these numbers where you can just kind of see them yourself. And then, yeah, that one article by Charles, it's a lot. I haven't even finished it, but he's just jam-packed it with things to think about, questions, information, the different sides of information, without getting deep into, any talk about conspiracies and stuff like that. But he did a great job. So I'm confident that the rest of the article, because it's long, and that the rest of the article is probably going to be much of the same thing. Maybe I should finish reading it before I post it. But I know kind of where he comes from. I've listened to him in an interview. So there you go, everyone. Hugs, virtual hugs, as we're somewhat only can do on Live at 5 anyway. But definitely boost your immune system. I think that will absolutely have such great benefit through what they call the second wave. And again, they're gonna talk about it more in cases than anything. Understand, you want to see what the death numbers are. That's key. And antibodies, how many people have it, and the natural immunity, and think of all the people that have had it with no symptoms. I mean, we just really want to stay on point of that with all the people that are following and towing the line with all of this, from politicians, all the various levels, to schools, to all kinds of people. So that's, the idea is we've got to somehow bring awareness on more and more. I see, I read more and more people saying physical distancing. and not the other one, much better. But at the end of the day, we're not going to build our immune system if we're doing this physical distancing. So all well and healthy people, you're not going to be building your immune system. That's why I think it's very, very important to get out and about. And if you catch it, great. If you've got the antibody, you may already have the antibodies. So who knows what they're going to do, but we'll go from there. Have a great weekend. I feel it's Friday. That's right. So have a great long weekend, or not long weekend, great weekend, and we will see you definitely on Monday. But if anything comes up, I will come on board as well. But other than that, wish everybody a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Take care of yourself. Bye for now.